The NFL's calendar is broken up into segments. Now we're in the playoff segment, actually heading for the divisional playoff round. The Chiefs, unfortunately, not in there for the first time in 10 years. So the Chiefs' kingdom is in the pivot mode, and that's what we'll explore in this edition of Defending the Kingdom. And, of course, every Defending the Kingdom brought to you by Ticketmaster.
Mahomes in the pocket, he'll step up, he'll scramble 10, 5, Mahomes, diving, touchdown, Kansas City.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. And we are here to talk about the pivot, not an NBA pivot or a basketball pivot in the lane. It is glancing back briefly, maybe a little more than briefly, at 2025, but really looking ahead to 2026. I don't know how you spent your weekend, but I was captivated by the playoff games. I think I've watched almost every snap of every game, and it just, when you're in the weeds like us and you're like, it's us and the opponent, you don't get to look at the league globally.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Other than the final game of the weekend, every game was decided by 4 points or less, all-time NFL record. But you saw when Coach says, God, the parity in this league is crazy, we saw it manifested over Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night.
Yeah, we sure did. And, we'll talk about areas we think this team can improve over the next several months to make sure something like this season doesn't happen again next season. But I think the areas that we're going to talk about were on full display this weekend, because I think what the teams that were playing last weekend, what they did really well over the course of the season, were the things that maybe we struggled with. And that's an explosive running game, right? A lot of these playoff teams have explosive running games. Mm-hmm. I think about third down efficiency on both sides of the ball. Look at Houston against Pittsburgh. Houston's speed on defense really at all three levels, and their ability to suffocate the opposing quarterback with their pass rush, but also their tenacity and their physicality at the linebacker position and at defensive back. Really impressive, right? And the Chiefs have been that before. We got to find a way to get back to that, and also with the explosiveness with the running game. So we'll talk about it, but I was thinking about watching these playoff games thinking these areas that some of these teams are finding a lot of success, that's where maybe we struggled this year. That's why I think we're in the predicament that we're in. And it's a matter of correcting that now over the next several months.
Yeah, I'm going to also dive into one of my big thesis points where the league has changed, primarily 24 and 25. It's just camouflaged. And it proved itself. A lot of people were on social saying, oh, we heard what you had said in your thesis, and we're seeing this in front of our eyes. We just haven't talked about it because it's been camouflaged, but I'll get to that in a second. There's your tease. But it was remarkable. And think about Houston. They turned the ball over 3 times on the road and win by 24 points.
Their offense did them no favors. The defense scored 2 touchdowns.
That
Unbelievable.
Defense, yeah, but I'm going to get to this. They're not alone in the National Football League in 2025 and the 26 playoffs. What do you have around the world, though, before we get into the weeds?
I've got 0 around the worlds for you today. So everybody let me know where you're listening. I got nothing today.
It's all good. It is all good.
We're starting fresh, I guess.
It's the pivot.
Yeah.
We're pivoting to a new galaxy. And so we're looking –
We're leaving 2025 behind us.
We're leaving it behind, not to re-enter. And it's interesting. No Chief has ever won 0.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some zeros, right?
Because when did 0 become an acceptable
of,
number?
Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen some other zeros.
Travis Hunter, 0?
Yeah. So you get some zeros. We've not had a 0.
Yeah. I don't know if we ever will.
Well, it's a whole DTK to get into our numerology of our uniforms because it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We talk about it usually during the preseason. There's just not enough.
We have a lot of retired
slots.
numbers.
A lot. And some of those are like, well, maybe we ought to reconsider those because we could sure use some of those numbers.
Yeah.
But, of course, that gets involved with all the way up the line. But that to me, it's an interesting discussion because you're like, nobody's wore 0. And, hey, so like my granddaughter, favorite number is 28. Born on March the 28th. She loves 28, wears 28 as a uniform. She goes, Grandpa, there's no 28. We don't have any 28s. I know. Abner Haynes took it and hung it up. Then nobody's using it. So that's just one of many. But anyway, that's a whole nother deal. I'm going down a rabbit hole. But this episode is going to deal about the pivot. Looking back at 2025, you've alluded to it some. I'm going to get into it a lot. I'll save the third down defense and where the NFL – there's not enough talk about how the NFL changed this year and how it is impacting every game of the playoffs. But I'll let you start with what you thought, because we're going to start with 25, and not to be negative, because we've said time and time again, this is a franchise and a coaching staff and an infrastructure, and Brett Veach and his staff and the personnel staff that is the infrastructure is so strong, still the best in the league, in our opinion. But the engine light just came on in your car, and you're trying to get to work, and I'm late for work, but I hope it doesn't. I'm going to try to go. Wait a minute, you're coming home, and you're like, my engine light's still on. I sure hope it goes off. It doesn't go off. It won't go off. But now you've pulled but the engine blew up, right?
Yeah.
So now we're getting towed to the shop, but the guys to fix it are in this building. So let's just start with that. We believe in that. And what we're going to say here is only bringing up some points, primarily in a numerical, empirical sense of what we see could be one of the really quick ways to fix what didn't happen in 25 or did happen in 25 that couldn't happen in 26 or vice versa.
Yeah, I think an important thing to look at with this, and we've talked about it all year, is how thin the margin is. It's razor thin, and couldn't be more true for the Chiefs last year. So through week 15, which is kind of when I stopped recording the numbers and the stats because that's when Mahomes got hurt, right? Through week 15, we had the 11th best point differential in the NFL. Of the 17 best point differentials in the league, so 1 through 17, we were the only team to have a losing record at that point. So a lot of bad luck mixed in there, a lot of the ball not bouncing your way. We lost 6 games by a field goal, most of any team in the NFL, and the most for any team since the 2023 season. 9 total games were lost by a single score. That's not an excuse, and I'm not trying to say, the Chiefs, let's just run it back entirely like it was and we'll have more luck. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the margin is really thin, and we saw that over and over again last year where the Chiefs were 1 or 2 plays away from winning a lot of these games that they lost. So for me, the mission this offseason, how do you ensure that we're either in a position where it doesn't come down to 1 or 2 plays, or if it does, we can make those 1 or 2 plays? And one area I want to start with is just having a more explosive running game. Which I think could help us in terms of our third down offense as well, and I'll get to that. But if you look at this, we had just 3 runs all of last season of 20 or more yards, fewest of any team in the NFL, and only one of those was by a running back. We had one by Xavier Worthy, one by Patrick Mahomes, and one by Kareem Hunt, I believe. You got to have more explosive runs there from the running back position. You just do. Coach Reed talked about this at his end-of-season presser, that our play action just wasn't as effective this year because the linebackers weren't leaning forward on the play action, and my guess is because they weren't too concerned about an explosive running game, right? If you have an explosive running game, those linebackers have to respect it, and it opens up the passing game further. And you look at the Chiefs' third down offense this year, it just wasn't what it's been in the past. We were 22 in the league on third down offense. That's not Chiefs football. I mean, the Chiefs, even when the offense last year or a couple years ago wasn't like a top 5 offense, we were still top 5 in third down. And it just wasn't the case this year, and I think not having an explosive running game was a part of that. That's nothing against the guys that were at the running back position for us last year. Those guys have done a lot of great things for us over the years. But we got to find a way to be more explosive next season at the running back position, and I think that would open up so many doors with this offense.
Yeah, and we saw it in the playoffs. We saw Woody Marks with Houston. We saw him against us, but even on the Monday night game, you could see it. It was a quarterback run, but Drake May's 37-yard run, that's a tug-of-war. That's a gigantic play in that game. But it's not just the running game, it's the threat to run. And so we saw it, the Rams have the threat to run and getting significant run plays. The Bills didn't run it great, but the threat is there with James Cook.
You have to respect James
Cook. You got
to
to respect it, and you got to respect the run game of Josh Allen. So it's the run game, explosive runs, you're right, and then the threat to run game. Now, this exacerbates my point. And where the NFL changed, and we went into this a little bit last week, but I'm going to go into it more because the playoffs just backed it up. Time of possession in this league. In 24, the Chiefs kind of helped change this, but time of possession, let me just read through these. Number 1 in the league in 25 was Buffalo, 33.09. And in fact, between 1 and 9, 1 was 33.09 and 9 is 30.42. Number 2, the Chargers. Number 3, Tampa Bay. Number 4, Houston. Number 5, Jacksonville. Number 6, New England. Number 7, Denver. Number 8, Chicago. Number 9, San Francisco. What do you notice about that group?
Those teams are all in the playoffs.
All in the playoffs, with the exception of Tampa Bay, who was a 5 minutes from
They were right there, yeah.
5 minutes from the playoffs. And the Chiefs were 0-7 against this group. So what's the thesis here is the league changed. It's just camouflaged because it's back to ball control offense, play to my flesh-eating defense, which we've talked about. We see it with Seattle. We see it with Denver. We saw it with Houston. That game was that last night. Houston turned it over, but normally they're playing to that defense. And teams will take a shot. They'll take that. Yep, there's a shot. Hopefully they get a DPI. But mainly they're running 6 to 8 yard routes, or they're running tunnel screens or bubble screens or rocket screens, or running the ball. And then they'll do what I'm seeing is a play that I saw maybe 5 times this weekend. I look to take my shot. I'm sending verts. I'm sending like 3 or 4 vertical routes. Oh, I don't have it. I'm going to throw a check down to the back. But it's not a check down. It's a delayed screen. One guy's out in front of the guy in the check down because all your DBs, much of them, are down the field with your verticals. And so now I've got this really kind of cool play. Even if I get 8 yards, now it's 3rd and 2. I go for it. I might make it on 4th and 1 and go for it on 4th and 2 and maybe make it. But it's me playing chess against you, and your knight cannot move 3 forward and 2 right or left.
Yeah.
It's going to move like a pawn. I'm basically, you hear me talk about dictating terms. What these teams did all year long, and the winners in the playoffs, which is number 1, number 4 on this list, number 6 on this list, and number 8 on this list, and number 9 on this list, all won playoff games. They're dictating the terms, and we'll see it even more so in the divisional round.
It's interesting because I think the Chiefs actually did a pretty good job of that strategy 2 years ago. So in 2024.
We were 6th in the league.
Yeah.
Who was number 1?
I can't remember.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, no surprise.
And
right?
they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So so to your point, it's an excellent point. We were 6th.
We did a good job of that. What it does is it shortens the game, and it makes every possession that much more important. And I think that's why you're seeing all of these playoff games come down to the final possession, because you don't have 13 possessions to work with. You don't have a chance to run up the score or to create a 2-possession lead because you only have 8 or 9 possessions in the game. The Chiefs did a good job of it a couple of years ago, and we won a lot of one-score games. Well, this past year, as we saw, we go 1-8 in one-score games, something like that. Not a lot of success in one-score games, and not a lot of success in terms of ball control over the course of the year. And just getting back to the explosive running game, I think that played a big role in it. Not always because you have to have an explosive run, but because, like you said, the defense needs to respect the fact that anytime you hand the ball off, it could go for a 60-yard run. And the Bills have that, right? A lot of these teams have that. We struggled to find that this year, and teams could sit on the pass. And especially with Patrick Mahomes coming off the injury, I think an awesome way to help him as he comes back from that injury is to give him an explosive running game. And that's something that, looking at this offseason, I'm looking forward to, because I think that's an area that we have to address.
I'm going to let you go to third, because another part of this discussion, it's a big part of it, is third down offense and defense. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you about your third down offensive numbers.
Yeah, third down offense, once more, we were 22nd in the league, which is just shocking to me. You look at last year, the offensive numbers weren't crazy, but we were the number 1 third down offense in the NFL. Like, when it came down to it on third down, talking about 2024, we were getting it more often than not. This past year, again, so many of these games came down to a couple of plays, a couple of downs, and we just didn't convert on third down. I think about the Houston game, for example, a couple of big third downs in that game, a game that we were right there with Houston. I mean, I don't watch these playoff games and say, man, the Texans are like leaps and bounds better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs were right there with the Texans. We were right there with the Chargers twice. We were right there with the Bills, right there with a lot of these teams.
The
Broncos, yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
Once with Oladoka.
Even when we had like our junior varsity out there. But what happened is, I'll give those teams credit. They made the plays and we didn't. We normally, for years, made those plays and the other team didn't. We have to get back to making those plays. And it really does come down to the simple fact of you got to convert when it's like 3rd and 5. And the Chiefs for years were so good at that. And last year we just weren't. And we got to find a way to get better at that.
And I'm going to take the other side of this. That list of teams that I mentioned we're 0-7 against, and we said their time of possession, they're dictating terms. You have one side of this, and that is being efficient yourself. Mm-hmm. The other side of this is what? Getting teams off the field.
And you got to get pressure to get teams off the field.
You've got to get teams off the field, one way or the other. Pressure, coverage, scheme, personnel, all of this. Now, hear my point, and this is where Spags will work on this and fixing this, and I have every belief that he will. 16 times this season in the 11 losses, just take the 11 losses, 16 times in the 11 losses, there were 3rd and 10 8 times. Half the times was 3rd and 10 or more, and we did not stop them at critical points of the game.
Chargers game, Broncos game.
And here's where you can get tricked in a little bit of going, the Chiefs were 6th in scoring defense. You're like, all right, 19 points a game. Let's go. Well, losing games 23-19, 22-19, 20-13, 16-13, 20-10. At the critical time of these low possession teams playing to dictate terms, you've got a chance to get them off the field. Anybody would say 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8. 8 times there was 3rd and 10 or more, and the other team converted or actually got a touchdown in a couple instances. Let me just give you a few. Denver on the road. 2:02 to go in the game. It is tied at 19. Denver has 3rd and 15 at their own 21-yard line. If they just get 7 yards or 8 yards, you hold them to that. They've got a punt, and Pat Mahomes gets a field goal to win it.
Yeah.
Inside of 2 minutes.
And we win.
20-yard gain. First down. What does Denver do? It leads to the overtime, and Denver wins in that game. All right. There's more here. Jacksonville, a minute and 1 second to go in the game. They have the ball, 3rd down and 9, I believe, at their own 43-yard line, and they get a 35-yard pass to the boundary. You remember, just barely missed time. I went back and watched all these.
Brian Thomas, I think.
It was Brian Thomas, barely missed, but still, it was Trevor Lawrence getting his feet set, making a good throw to the outside, boundary to numbers. That's another one. If you stop them there, you can kill the clock. You're ahead 28-24.
Yeah.
You're not trailing, or it is not tied. And there are, again, 16 times.
Week 1 against the Chargers.
Week 1.
3rd and 15.
And there's actually a time before that at a critical time near the end of the half where it's 3rd down and 16, and they get 15 and make it on a 4th and 1 tush push with Herbert.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so there's another. You get them off the field, you get field position, a chance to score, and that was a lot of the back-to-backs that happened. But it's most of these are in the fourth quarter. So 8 times of the 16, it was 3rd and 10 or more. 5 times it was between 3rd and 6 and 9. These aren't 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 1s. They're not. They're long. So here's the point. I have every belief in Steve Spagnuolo fixing this. Is it scheme? Yeah, probably. Is it personnel? Yeah, probably. Is it pass rush, lack thereof? Yeah. Is it coverage? It's all of that. It's my ACT score. I said fill them all in. All of the above. I got like a 5. But you fill it in, all the above, and that's where Spags and I've got belief in it. So it looks like a negative, but the point I think we're trying to make here is if you just fix half of these,
yeah,
you're 11-6. You're not 6-11 because these are critical. The game flips on these plays at this time, and it just happened over and over and over again.
And that's my point with getting more explosive at running back too, is we don't necessarily need James Cook. We just need to get a little bit more explosive there. If you get a little bit more explosive at running back and you can stop the opposition on a quarter of those long 3rd downs, we're talking about a playoff game right now, right? So that's to my point earlier about how thin the margin is. And we were just on the other side of it this year. But the exciting part of all of this is that what we're talking about, like, this isn't rocket science. Like, these are things the Chiefs can attack and improve in the offseason. And like I've talked about over the last handful of weeks, I'm excited for that opportunity. You know, it's been kind of interesting. The Chiefs have been in this mode over the last several years where there are enormous expectations, and almost always they have come through on those expectations. With you're picking at the bottom of the first round, you don't have a lot of money to work with because you have a lot of high-priced players, but yet you have expectations to get to and win the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs have done that over and over and over again. You make it to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. You win 3 of them. You win 2 in a row. You have a chance to go back-to-back. You know, watching the playoffs last weekend, watching the Eagles lose in the first round, gave me even more perspective about how incredible the back-to-back run was. Like, it is so hard to go back-to-back, and the Chiefs did it, right? And they not only did that, they made it back for a 3rd time with a chance at a three-peat, 1 game away from 3 Super Bowls in a row. I say all this just to say that this team for so long was in that mode. I think now, where it's possible that even though we were winning, there were things that were maybe like compound fractures, right? Like issues that were building over time, but you just can't address those things with wholesale changes because you're winning and you have the goal in front of you. Well, when you have a season like this, the silver lining is, all right, now it's time to make some changes and address things, fix things that maybe we're building over a long period of time and set ourselves up for a run of success that hopefully lasts another 7-8 years, right? So that's how I'm looking at this. It's a great opportunity for the Chiefs, the front office, the coaching staff, and the players to reset a little bit, to fix the things that went wrong, the things that we're talking about, and to go on another run. And I have full confidence in the people here to get that done. Like you said, we're not laying out these things to be negative. We're saying them like, hey, these are the issues that are correctable. We believe in the people here to correct those issues, and hopefully this time next year we're talking about a playoff run.
Who's the guy across the street that's your neighbor that fixes everything?
Jeff. Shout out Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, this would be your car, the engine light's on, and your wife's going, hey, better not drive it to work. I've got to get to work in 10 minutes. I've got to do DTK. And then you take it over to Jeff, and he does the diagnostics, and he goes, oh, we got to fix this, and this. But he fixes it.
Can I give you a great example?
Yeah.
Like this actually happened.
Oh,
This
my God.
kind of thing happens all the time. I live in an older home, and my HVAC unit is on like a concrete slab, like out on the side of the house.
And those are great, usually great pours of concrete that last, I don't know, 500 years?
I mean, this was poured in probably 1975. I don't know.
I don't think there's any rebar in there either.
Probably not. And it's,
Let's
it's
just
kind
put
of
it on.
slanting. And I think I was
Slanting.
Well, that's the thing. It was like slanting.
It's listing at 30 degrees port.
And I was like trimming the weeds in the side of my house, and I feel him walking over, and he's like, "Hey, Matt," and I was like, "Hey," and he's like, "Your HVAC's kind of slanting, but we're gonna fix it." And he had like a big concrete brick for me, and he puts it under,
Sure.
and he's like, "Good as new." That's what we're talking about right here. The
You do
HVAC
the
system
engine-
was good, just needed to get it, fixed a little bit.
Engine lights on, Chiefs Kingdom.
Yeah.
Do the diagnostics. Let's take a look at it and get it fixed. That's what we're dealing with. Let me take this a step further. So the scoring drives allowed. The Chiefs are making everybody work to score, but they're scoring.
Yeah.
So they were 29th in the league. The average scoring drive, this isn't a drive, this is a scoring drive, either field goal or touchdown. The Chiefs were 29th, 8.81 plays. But the Chiefs were last in that it was 4 minutes and 25 seconds, and the team still scored. So that's not getting off the field when you can get off the field. And then 10-play scoring efficiency against the Chiefs, a 10-play drive, and you still score. How efficient are you on the 10-play drive? The Chiefs were the fourth worst. So to me, again, this is just a point that we're both making is you could get to 11-6 on this stat alone.
Yeah, and I really do think that football, at the end of the day, is won up front. And when you're looking at some of these defensive numbers, these issues on third down, it boils down to defensive line. And I think defensive line is an area the Chiefs could address this offseason, whether that be through free agency or the draft. Defensive line is an emphasis area, both at edge, maybe getting some speed there, but also at defensive tackle, where you look at the course of the season, losing Omar Norman-Lott early in the year turned out to be a pretty big deal, just because we did not have a lot of bodies there.
Yeah, good point.
Chris Jones is getting triple-teamed, and you just have to have bodies who can rotate in and who can create pressure up front at defensive tackle. And we bring on Mike Pennell late in the year. We know what Mike can do, been a big part of some Super Bowl teams. But
Brought back Derek Nottie. He was with the Jets.
Yeah, but I think that's an area the Chiefs could address where we just need to get more explosive there at defensive tackle and at defensive end. And you look at some of these teams across the league, Denver comes to mind. They just have guy after guy after guy. They're rotating in there. Houston, obviously, but so many of these teams, like great pass rushes. We've got to get more pressure. And the Chiefs, I look back at like 2023, that Chiefs defense in 2023 was really, really good, right? Yeah. And it began with their pass rush. So defensively, if we're talking about
the best
areas,
who's ever played here.
Oh, unbelievable.
He went on that 7-game stretch where he looked like Pro Bowl.
Well, strip sack on Lamar Jackson, and it was coming from all these different places. That's an area that I think the Chiefs could address this offseason, again, through free agency or the draft, or both. Just really trying to invest in the defensive front.
Did you just send me this email on my Surface about running backs, explosive interior linemen in the draft?
Yeah, it's going to take over our life here over the next
we'll get to that.
months.
We're not on this episode. But we do still have our spy out there. Is he? How long have we had him employed out there? We can't.
he's been out there behind enemy lines for months and months and months.
Been a little rough on him. I don't know how much
We-
food or water he's got left.
A care package going his way, hopefully.
There's a drone right above you, Ari. It's going to drop it down. You get some water and some MREs, which is military for military ready to eat. We'll send that to you and drop it to you. But we can either do that or we can check in with our spy. Let's check in with Ari Wolfe.
Hello to everyone and welcome to a playoff edition of Out West. I am joined by two of my favorite football minds, Mitch Holthus and Matt McMullen. Gentlemen, appreciate you spending some time with me. So it's the playoffs. We don't have the Chiefs, and that is a huge bummer. It seems sort of like an out-of-body experience to not be talking about the Chiefs, but the playoffs go on, and there's lots to talk about. This segment has focused on the AFC West throughout the season, so I thought there was one AFC West team, so let's start with them. The Chargers went to Foxborough. It didn't come as a huge surprise, but they got beat pretty soundly 19-3 on Sunday night. Herbert had a tough night, threw for 159 yards. The offense didn't have much going. So let's take a little broader look at the Chargers. So we're done with year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. This is Tuesday afternoon. Greg Roman has been fired. Mike Devlin, their offensive line coach, has been fired. Justin Herbert is now 0-3 in the playoffs. And frankly, all 3 performances, I think he would even admit, have not been good enough. So what do we think of the Chargers as we look at the AFC West going into the future? Are you guys bullish that Harbaugh is going to find the right combination, or are the Chargers a work in progress? Matt, let's start with you. What's your take on the future for the Los Angeles Chargers?
Well, that's a tough break for their offensive line coach, isn't it? I mean,
Right?
not his fault they lost Alt and Slater and missed Pipkins for a while, and we're down to like their third stringers at tackle. It's interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of questions about Herbert moving forward. And I think when you're a player of his caliber, like we all agree, he's a very good quarterback and can get his team to the playoffs. But at the end of the day, what really matters at that position is, can you win playoff games and make plays in big moments? And the reality for Herbert so far is he has come up short in those playoff games. So I think they're in a tough spot where you have a team that obviously is playoff caliber, but you can't fast forward to these playoff games and try to get that moment for Herbert. So do they have a season next year where they're thinking too much about coming through in the playoffs and they don't even make it there? That would be my concern for the Chargers. And as a Chiefs fan, I certainly hope that happens. But it could be an interesting thing to watch where does Herbert start thinking too much about the lack of playoff success, and does that hurt his career in the short term? We'll see.
Yeah, you can't be worried about legacy early in your career. All right, so let's pose it to Mitch, okay? You're a prognosticator. You're on the stock market. You can either buy the Chargers right now or sell the Chargers. What are you telling Chiefs Kingdom about the future for the Chargers?
I'm going to leave that stock alone. Here's where I'm going. This is about
Okay.
sixth grade Mrs. Leonard and Roxy Barnes. And here's why. Hear me out. I had a battle axe sixth grade. One of my sixth grade teachers was Mrs. Leonard. Roxy Barnes could do no wrong. If she got a bad grade on a test, it was like, well, you didn't do that badly. You can do better next time. I would have the same score, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So the grading scale for the Chargers to me has seemed like it's been pretty light over the years. And I don't know if it's because they're, right across the causeway from NFL Network or what, but this to me is a crushing loss to them. And to fire Greg Roman, to me, is a bigger deal than you think. Jim Harbaugh has wanted to bring the Ravens to the AFC West. He's wanted to bring the Michigan Wolverines, the old Stanford Cardinal, the San Diego Toreros. He wants to bring that to the West. And he got pummeled in this game. And it goes back, Ari, to one of my thesis points, and I've actually made it on this podcast. Things are happening in this league right under our nose, and we're not recognizing it because it's camouflaged. And that is, we are playing, and Harbaugh is right in the middle of this. He was second, I think, in the league in time of possession. He wants to play it really close and tight. Don't turn it over. Play to your defense. Let Tui Pelotu go crazy, and Khalil Mack and Derwin James Jr., and then we'll win games 21-18. Until you play a game like the other day and you get absolutely just destroyed. And so that makes you think and reconfigure everything, including your quarterback and your personnel. So the fact that he fired Greg Roman, to me, is I don't know where they're at, to be quite honest. So if my investor calls me and goes, "What do you think of this stock?" I'll go, "Let's look at something else right now."
Fair enough. I like that. All right, I wanted to talk about a few of the games from this past weekend, and then we'll talk about the games coming up this weekend. And then we're also going to have some awards. All of us are going to have our end of the year awards, MVP, and a few other ones. So first, I want to talk about the Rams Panthers. It was the opening game of the playoff weekend. I thought Bryce Young and the Panthers sort of played above their heads. I mean, they gave the Rams all they can handle. My number one takeaway from the game was what Matthew Stafford said in the huddle before the game-winning drive, and he's like, "Let's go snatch their hearts right out of them." Super cold-blooded, but isn't that what you want? Is that something you'd expect Patrick Mahomes to also say? So Stafford, to me, is the guy right now. He's, to me, the best quarterback currently in the field. That win is a win to get you into the heart of the playoffs in the divisional round. They're going to have to win on the road the whole way. What'd you guys make of the Rams' performance in Charlotte?
Kind of felt like they showed up thinking they were going to win, and the Panthers were playing like a team that had nothing to lose.
Right.
But in the end, the Rams, being as talented as they are, they made the plays when they had to. And pretty cool for Stafford to say that in the huddle after the season that he's had, where threw for over 45 touchdowns. I think he led the league in passing yards. Just an unbelievable season for him. I think his best season as a pro, and that's saying something. And in that moment, for him to lead a game-winning drive like that, when the Panthers had all the momentum in the world, and again, nothing to lose, while the Rams had everything to lose, pretty cool he was able to lead them through that. I do wonder, even though I think the Rams this year were the best team in football, I do wonder if they've made this bed for themselves where it's going to be really tough for them to get to the Super Bowl and win it, just playing on the road the whole way. We've seen it happen before. Hasn't happened often, though. We'll see if they can do it. But first tests for them, they passed it close. I thought the Panthers were going to do it there for a minute, but respect for the Rams. We'll see if they can keep it going.
This felt like a cat playing with a mouse in the corner. Some kid playing with his food. So I thought, well, they're going to mess. I'm a little bit like math. They're going to mess around enough, Ari, that they could goof this up. But then they're like, nah, we'll just go win it right here. And why do I see Matt Stafford? Is I don't even know. I'm not cool enough to think of, is it Van Diesel or like Dwayne Johnson with their shirt off, going, "Let's just go take their heart out." Like this is Matt Stafford standing above Billy Graham Parkway with his shirt off, going, "Let's just take their heart out and fly home." That's so. They're the most comprehensive team in the league, I think.
Yeah.
They just happen to the misfortune of playing in the best division this league has seen in a while, and they've got to do it on the road, which will be tough. But if they're the one team that's out of my thesis of the top 9 time of possession teams, they're not, because they have a little more of a high-powered offense, but they've got a decent defense, a really good defense. So if there's any team that could pull it off as a wild card, it's the Rams.
All right, now I want to talk about the Bears and the Packers. They meet again. They rarely played in the playoffs. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, so I was sort of right in between the two places. I know how intense the rivalry is. Packers look great for most of the game. The Bears, not only did they look bad, but I actually thought the way Caleb was acting on the sideline was awful. He was pouting, he was yelling at guys, but it didn't look constructive. They looked like a complete mess. Well, fast forward to the end of the game, just like the Bears have done all year, he turns it on, and Caleb Williams looked like a Hall of Famer in the fourth quarter. They come back, they're down 18 points. They beat their rivals. And the season where I feel like the Bears were the NFC version of the Broncos, where you kept questioning, are they really any good? Well, the Bears in this game both looked terrible, and then at the end of the game looked amazing. Caleb Williams has proven, though, I think that he belongs as a legit quarterback who can lead a team in big moments. It was a great atmosphere at Soldier Field. What did you guys take away from that, and what did you guys think of Caleb's play?
Yeah, pretty amazing, because that stadium was going nuts when the game began, right? I mean, they haven't hosted a playoff game there in quite a while. But then the Packers go on this early scoring barrage, and it's 21-3 or whatever, and they keep showing all the Bears fans in the stands, and they all look just so sad, like they were so excited. Like this was their moment. This was their opportunity. They're going to go beat the Packers. They're going to advance in the playoffs, and they're going to be there to see it. First home playoff win in a long time. And you could just see the pain in their faces, right? Well, for the Bears, who are an overall pretty young team, a team that hasn't kind of experienced a lot of success, against the Green Bay Packers on the other side, to come together and to find a way to win that game is really cool. I first give a lot of credit to the Bears defense. The Bears defense in the second half was awesome. Like how they made the adjustments to prevent Green Bay from doing hardly anything in the second half when they were moving the ball at will in the first half. And they opened the door for the Bears offense to make something happen. And, in the context of our conversation about Herbert earlier, again, we all agree Herbert is a really good player, but the reality is in the games that matter the most, he has not made plays. Caleb has had an up and down season. At times he looks great. Other times you're like, I don't know. But the guy made plays when it mattered most. That fourth down, just incredible plays when it matters most. And that's what great quarterbacks are defined by. So I have all the respect in the world for Caleb right now for going out there and in a situation that seemed pretty dire to make some big time plays and big moments against your hated rival and to advance in the playoffs. It's pretty cool. To me, that's what playoff football is all about.
It is. Mitch, one quick thing. That fourth down play, the only other guy I think can make that throw actually is Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
The way his body was contorted and be able to put the loft on it, like I was thinking, what other quarterback in the league could make that throw? And the only guy I could come up with was Mahomes. And I'm sure you guys remember when Caleb was coming out, there was a lot of comparisons that he was like Mahomes, which I didn't like that comparison. But on that throw, he reminded me a lot of number 15. Mitch, what were your thoughts on the Bears and the Packers?
I lived this because we were phytoplankton here at the bottom of the ocean, and then Andy Reid showed up. And the very next year we went 9-0. And we do a lot of metrics and analytics, and let's look at things numerically and empirical. And then there are some instances where a coach comes in and completely changed the mentality and demeanor of a team. We have seen it with the Lions in years past, but then we see what Ben Johnson has done to the Chicago Bears. And all those fans were freaking out at halftime going, we're going to lose to the Packers again, and I got to go face the Packer guy at work, and he's going to bury me. Ben Johnson said, the heck with that. He has changed the demeanor of that entire team. That team now plays with an edge. Now, Caleb Williams, my litmus test of quarterbacks, and only a small sample size of being in the league 32 years, is they have to do this, Ari. Who can throw the deep out with velocity? Who can throw the deep 7 route, the corner route with accuracy, numbers to boundary? Who can lead a team down 4, 75 yards for a touchdown, not a field goal, in 4 minutes or less? Who can win a playoff game doing all those things? And now all of a sudden we've seen Caleb Williams check those boxes off, which Justin Herbert has not.
Right.
So we've seen it, and he's done it against a division rival. Now he's got to do it again. But to me, that were my takeaways. That, and I'm a small town guy. You can go to small town places and find NFL players like Gooding, Idaho. How good is Loveland, the tight end?
Oh my God.
Ari, look up Gooding, Idaho. That's where this kid is from. And even though he went to Michigan, he's from a small town, little Spurkis town in Idaho, and the guy's a stud. If we had him right now, we'd still be playing at that backdrop behind you with the fireworks going off.
I like that. I'd like to just tag that one of the little subplots with the Packers and the Bears, the frosty relationship between Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson. Now, it seems it's more Ben doesn't like Matt, is even when he became the head coach, if you remember Ben's initial press conference, he talked about his respect for, the other coaches in the NFC North. And he said, but I sure like beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. And their handshake, I've seen some quick handshakes in a post game. That was about as fast a pit stop as I've ever seen between two head coaches at the end of a playoff game. That to me just adds to the spiciness of the rivalry.
Well, let's put it
one
this
other
way.
game from last weekend I want to discuss in detail.
Let's put it this way. Ben Johnson was slated to be the keynote speaker at the Chippewa Falls Chamber of Commerce. That got canceled. So you know how difficult. It's on, baby. That rivalry.
It's on. I love it. It's so good for the rivalry. All right, I want to touch on one of the other wild card games. The Bills and Josh Allen have just been such a big part of all of our lives because of the rivalry with the Chiefs. When this game, I looked at it, I was like, boy, Jacksonville is red hot. This is a young team playing with great energy. They're playing at home. And then I just kept coming back to the other team's got Josh Allen. Despite whatever else is going on with the Bills, I thought, this is Josh Allen's game. Well, in the end, it came down to that. Josh Allen willed his team to victory. And the team that wanted to ban the tush push had the best 9-yard tush push I've ever seen. I think the Bills are actually the team to beat because of Josh Allen, but I thought they had to get by Jacksonville first. It was a great football game. I think Jacksonville fans should be bullish on their future. I think what Liam Cohen did, turning around the team, there's a lot to be excited about. But in the end, it was Josh Allen getting his first road playoff victory. He's had some heartbreaking losses, in particular at the place behind me. What did you guys think of Josh Allen, and do you think the Bills are a real contender to win the Super Bowl?
Well, all right, when we've been talking about this over the last several weeks, this is why I could just never write the Bills off, because I've seen enough of playoff Josh Allen. And I get it's often been on the losing end against us, but he's a spectacular player who makes plays in
Yep.
big time moments, and I can just not write him off in a playoff game. Now, I'll give him some credit too, because one thing that's kind of been lost over the years is I do think that people make a lot of excuses for Josh, that, oh, his defense gave up this many points and this and that. And that's true. But if you look at the game that we had in Orchard Park a couple years ago and the AFC Championship game last year, he had the ball with a chance to win and he didn't get it done. I'll give him credit in this game. He had the ball. His team was down. He had to drive the length of the field to get it done on the road, and he did it. So I'll give him a lot of credit there that with a lot of pressure on Buffalo this year, he found a way to get it done in that game. Now, it doesn't get any easier not going to Denver, but yeah, I can never write off Josh Allen and the Bills, and I think it's going to be an awesome game on Saturday.
I was really kind of surprised how good the Bills defense played. Not that they shut down the Jags, but they were good enough. And that's been the Achilles heel for that team, right? Especially in the secondary. But they played playoff decent football. And the fact that the Bills won without James Cook doing much at all was the fact that it gives it even more of a testimony to Josh Allen, his ability to make those plays. His throw into halves coverage at the near side boundary on the last drive was like, okay, that was Mahomesian. And so in this world of the playoffs where it seems to be so incredibly tight, and now here's Josh Allen playing a quarterback this week who's never won a playoff game yet. Okay, until you check the box, you can't check the box. And Josh Allen is he's just very interesting to watch in this playoffs because he knows in the back of his mind he's not saying it, but the door is flown open for him, even though he's got to take the road path too.
And Ari, I'll add one more thing. So the injury report every week will say the player's name and then the injury next to him for what they're receiving treatment for. I imagine the injury report this week is going to have Josh Allen listed for a foot, neck, ribs, leg. I mean, he had every single injury you could ever imagine in that game against Jacksonville. And the dude just kept finding ways to move the football down the field. So, you know, you don't have to ask anybody. We have immense respect for Josh Allen. We've been enjoyed beating him over the years, but really good player. And I think he has as good a chance as anybody to go win the whole thing.
And when he was at Wyoming, I called a couple of his games. He may be a different guy today, but I found him to be down to earth, just a regular guy, like a small town America guy. He fit great in Laramie. So I just think that it's, when he's not playing the Chiefs, he's a guy who I feel good about rooting for because I think his values represent my values in the sense he's like a good guy. So anyway, moving
Fireball,
on.
California, baby. Fireball, California. Grew up on a ranch. He was in FFA.
So the other games to just quickly touch on, I thought the Niners and Kyle Shanahan deserve a ton of credit. They outcoached. I felt like the Eagles, that trick play, the Eagles defense looked lost against a Vic Fangio defense. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the ramifications of the Pittsburgh loss, only because of what we've learned since. Mike Tomlin stepping down as the Steelers coach. So now we're looking at 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC North are looking for a head coach. So that whole division is going to look a lot different. We know Harbaugh is going to get another job because he's openly already interviewing. What do you guys think is next for Mike Tomlin? Because clearly a lot of franchises would covet having a guy with his experience, his toughness, his leadership. Or is he going to head to TV? Is he going to take a year off? Like, I don't know how to feel about what's going on with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. And somebody suggested to me earlier today, why don't they just both flip jobs? Why doesn't Harbaugh go to Pittsburgh and then Tomlin go to Baltimore? Because the cultures are pretty similar, right? They want to play
I texted Matt that last night.
In bad weather. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I texted Matt that last night right away when I saw it.
Do the Steelers still have Tomlin's rights? Because he stepped down. It could be.
Yeah, I don't know the particulars of that.
So I saw this on Twitter. Yeah, so I don't know this for a fact. I just saw it on Twitter and I'm now just running with it. But if the Steelers still possess his rights, it could be like a Sean Payton situation where he could take a year off and then he could be traded. essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know the specifics of it, but if that's the case, I think that would rule out a Baltimore head coaching gig for Tomlin.
Right.
That and the fact that John Harbaugh's out there it reminds me again of Andy Reid being available on December 31, 2012. You've got two guys that are accomplished Super Bowl champion head coaches that are out there. I think what it's done, there's a ripple effect of this. It's slowed down a lot of these other searches these teams that are searching now are going, wait a minute, those two guys are available. Now, if I've got a trade to get Tomlin, that might cool the Jets on that a bit, but I still might go ahead and forge ahead and do it because both those guys we know are Hall of Fame caliber coaches. It's a very interesting dynamic, the fact, and you're going to see a ripple effect of those two guys and what happens with them first, because it seems like they flow to the top of the chart.
For sure. I thought it was interesting because I guess my first instinct said, if I'm John Harbaugh, I want to go to a team that has a franchise caliber quarterback that can lead to a Super Bowl. So when he did his first interview in Atlanta, that confused me. I don't see Atlanta, given their quarterback situation, as being ready to be an elite team. So it'd be interesting to see where that all pans out. But to have these kind of coaches available is going to make for a very fun coaching season. All right.
And Ari, can I add to that? I think with both those guys, the GM combo here is big. Was Atlanta?
Right.
I mean, the GM jobs being open, I would do that first. What GM jobs are open where all of a sudden he brings kind of his own guy in there? Because both of those guys have had, they've not had acrimonious, they've had good relationships with their GMs, and that's been a part of being 18 and 19 years together.
Yeah.
Just keep them both away from the Raiders, please. That's what I would prefer.
Fair enough. All right, so the first game I want to talk about Wild Card Weekend features the Bills and the Broncos. This, to me, is a really interesting game because you've got an unproven second-year quarterback, the number one seed, playing at home in Bo Nix, taking on Josh Allen, who has tons of playoff experience. My instinct tells me to go with the better quarterback when I'm undecided, and this to me is not a particularly challenging decision. I think the Bills win an upset, but I've also underestimated the Broncos all year at my own peril. I thought Sean Payton was out of line at the beginning of the year, calling them an elite team that was Super Bowl bound, and I was humbled. He was right, I was wrong. What do you guys think about this matchup with the Bills going to Denver, playing up in altitude this weekend in the divisional round?
I'm curious if the Broncos can commit to running the football. If they run the football and they shorten the game, I think they have an opportunity to win it. But at the end of the day, I think if it's a close game, you know, like you were saying earlier, the Broncos have won all these close games this year. If it's a close game, I think Josh Allen will find a way to win it in the end.
Both of these teams play the same way. It goes back to the way the league has changed. These guys, Broncos were 6 in time of possession for the season, but a lot of that was skewed. Their defense wasn't as dominant at the end, and Buffalo was number 1. The margin of this thing is so slight, meaning who gets in the red zone and gets a touchdown. The Broncos' red zone defense is ridiculously good. And if Josh Allen has any kryptonite, we both talk about this, Matt and I, or is his red zone turnovers. Sometimes he'll try to Superman something in there. But this is a razor-thin margin. Both teams are going to try to play the same way. First downs are touchdowns in this game. So if you've got to make me go with an edge one way, it would be with the experienced quarterback, but not by much. This is a razor-thin margin in this game.
I agree with you there. All right, next up, 49ers and the Seahawks. They just played to decide the number 1 seed. That game was in San Francisco. It was dominated defensively by Seattle. Now no George Kittle for the 49ers. But for something tells me that the Shanahan factor, he's going to have something where his offense is going to be competitive. Is it going to be enough to win on the road in a raucous place? It's just interesting because the pressure is now on Seattle. It's not on San Francisco. I think Shanahan, besides Super Bowls, is one of the best coaches in the National Football League. I actually give the Niners a chance, even though they're considered big underdogs. What's your take?
Yeah, I think they certainly have a chance. I mean, they've kind of been somehow overcoming the odds all season, losing, every household name they have at some point, and finding a way. I still think Seattle is just playing such good football right now. Their defense is tremendous. And then offensively, when you and I talk, I've been kind of hard on Sam Darnold over the course of the season. But he's done enough to get them in this position. In the season that Jackson Smith and Jigba's having, just really difficult to slow a guy like that down at home in a game like this. So I think the Niners have done a great job of piecing this thing together to find a way to be in this moment. But especially losing Kittle last week, I just don't know if they have the offense to get it done against that Seattle defense.
The Seattle defense, piranha. The 49ers couldn't breathe in that game in week 18. No. They could not find a breath. I think they'll take his play sheet and just rip it to shreds and laminate it and all it. They'll just eat it right in front of him. I mean, unless Seattle does some things incredibly stupid and Darnold just, does a Viking game of a year ago in the playoffs, this Seattle defense is elite and they dominate this game.
Copy that. All right, moving on. This is one that I'm very undecided on. The Texans in that defense that's just looked so good since the start of the second half of the season, taking on a Patriots team that, looked really solid in their win against the Chargers. The game's in New England. It's going to be cold. My instinct actually tells me the Texans win. They have more playoff experience. That defense is going to give Drake May some problems. But I'm trying to factor in, the home field advantage I think is significant. But boy, the Texans team didn't seem to be bothered playing in Pittsburgh on Monday night. So I'm leaning Texans. What do you guys think?
Give me the Texans, Ari. That defense is unbelievable. I think so. Hunter and Anderson get a lot of credit, and that's kind of what everyone talks about with their defense, and deservingly so. I think it's the best tandem of pass rushers in the NFL. But that's just where it starts. I mean, their linebacker core is awesome, and their secondary, I think, is the best secondary in football. I mean, up and down the list, guys like Jalen Petrie, always around the ball, always flying in there making plays. Lassiter, Bullock, Derek Stingley, just really good players up and down that Texans defense. And I mean, the Steelers had no chance in that game offensively. Now, the only thing that makes it kind of an equalizer is Stroud has got to play better. And Stroud's performance was the only reason the Steelers even had a chance in that game at all with the turnovers. If Stroud can just be like a game manager, just protect the football, hopefully Nico Collins can play. Didn't look good with that concussion. But even if he can't play, as long as he can protect the football, we've seen that defense can score for him if they need to. Yeah. So I think the Texans are going to win this game just because that defense, I think, is the best defense in football. It reminds me of the Legion of Boom defense with the Seahawks 10 years ago. They're just really impressive. And as long as Stroud does not turn the ball over 3 times, I think the Texans win this game.
I talked about Ben Johnson being transformational with the Bears. Mike Vrabel is the AFC version of that.
Yeah.
That team plays with a edge every snap in every phase. Watch them in special teams. Yeah. They just go 100 miles an hour. And I'm so impressed with Vrabes. Houston has more talent. I am worried about the Collins concussion. I don't know if Christian Kirk can pull together another 130 yards against that New England defense. But then I go back to Houston's defense is enough to win this game. Again, another razor-thin game, and I'll go with Houston by a nose. But New England is fun to watch play.
Yeah.
And really I know we all had this, oh, I hated New England in the past. I don't hate this team. In fact, I enjoy watching them.
Well, that's what I was explaining to my kids the other day. They were like, you used to hate the Patriots, Dad. You hate. I'm like, that's the old evil empire with Bill Belichick when Brady was there. This is a new bunch with Vrabel and this team and Drake May. They're fun to watch. I found myself rooting for the Patriots, which was, it felt like it's a new thing to root for the Patriots. That's for sure. All right. To the final game of the divisional round, and the one I frankly think is the most interesting, you've got the Rams, who I think we all agree is the most talented team across the board. They have everything. They're going to be playing in Chicago, where the high temperature is going to be 19 degrees. It's probably going to be close to 0. And, it's the late game on Sunday, so it's going to be dark and cold at Soldier Field. We saw last year the Rams went into Philadelphia, and they almost beat the team that ended up winning the Super Bowl. So it's a similar situation. The Rams have been in this kind of situation. Everything tells me it should be the Rams, but then I think about what Caleb Williams and what head coach Ben Johnson have done with these Bears. They've kind of got me believing. I feel like I'm journeying. You got to start believing. I really do. So my mind says it's the Rams, and my heart tells me the Bears are going to find a way to win. Am I crazy? What do you guys make of this matchup?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I do think the Rams win this game just because the Bears are coming off a very emotional win that kind of took a lot to get it done. And I think the Rams are a better team. I think the Rams will come into this game probably a bit more focused than they did going into the Carolina game. And if the Rams play the way that I think we know they can play, the Rams win. I don't think the Bears can come back from down 21-3 against this Rams team because I think they just have too much offensive firepower. But to your point, it's the NFL. It's any given Sunday. And the way that Caleb and the Bears played last week across the board, especially defensively, if they play like that again, they'll have a chance. But I still think the Rams just have a little bit too much for the Bears to pull this one off.
I want to tell one quick thing. And keep in mind that Stafford does have the finger issue, and he is 37, and it's going to be cold. If he gets knocked around by that tough Bears defense, if I were a Rams fan, that's where I'd be concerned protecting Matthew Stafford, because I don't think he could take too many blows in that temperature and will the Rams to victory. Mitch, what say you, my friend?
Well, that's why the Rams run game's got to be there a little bit. And again, they're maybe the most comprehensive team in the league. So I think we sometimes underrate that defense of the Rams and what they can do and how physical they can be at times. So to me, and I'm going to contradict what I said about Caleb earlier because he checked every box that I wanted him to check. Now he's got to check it again. Okay, Matthew Stafford has done that several times in his career in the playoffs. That's the key prepositional phrase here. And I just think the Rams have a little more, even with the elements, to do it. And a Rams-Seahawks NFC Championship is way too tasty than because it will melt the polar ice cap. If you have that game in Seattle, you will see the water come down the San Joaquin Valley. Like, it's going to be amazing, that game.
But it's interesting how the best division in football this year, the NFC West, has actually managed the playoffs great, because if we look back to the NFC North last year, we had those three great teams. They all lost their first playoff game. So the NFC West, while they beat up on each other, it didn't affect them in the postseason. All right, so that's a look at the divisional round. Now, the season is coming on, and I think it's appropriate that the three of us give our personal award choices for the four biggest awards. We're going to go MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. I'm going to go first. I can promise you we won't be in agreement on all these, and you can decide out there in Chiefs Kingdom what you think for yourself. The MVP, I know many people think it's a two-headed race between Matthew Stafford and Drake May. I'm going with Stafford. The 46 touchdown passes led the league. He led the league in passing yards. He was fourth in quarterback rating. And when you watch him play too, I mean, he can spin it. Like, does anybody throw a prettier ball than Matthew Stafford? The Rams, to me, had a great year. Yeah, they didn't get the number one seed. They're going to have to battle through, but that's not what the MVP is about. Without him, they're not much. They have good pieces, but he's made that team into a great team. So Matthew Stafford is my choice for MVP. Matt, let's go to you.
So Mitch and I discussed this a little bit earlier. We're going to make sure none of us pick the same guys for the sake of this being fun, because we can't, I just don't want us all to say, yeah, Stafford, and all say the same thing. So for the sake of making this fun, how about Jonathan Taylor for MVP?
Okay.
We're turning the clock back to 2004 here. I'm giving a running back MVP. So Jonathan Taylor had 20 total touchdowns this year that led the NFL. He was third in scrimmage yards. Now, his numbers took a dip toward the end of the year when Riley Leonard and Phillip Rivers were his quarterbacks. But think about that Colts offense the first 2/3 of the season. And Daniel Jones played well, but I think we also know who Daniel Jones is. That offense was working because Jonathan Taylor was the best football player on the field, and he was the engine that made the whole thing go. Now, when they had some injuries start to happen and Jones got hurt, it was too much to put on him because a running back can only do so much. But what he was able to do for that Colts team the first 2/3 of the season was remarkable. And for the sake of this exercise, I'm giving Jonathan Taylor the MVP.
Yeah, and since I get to pick third on all these, I take the leftovers. And since I have to have an offensive player of the year, I'm saving that one for my third pick. And I'm going to go where you guys are going to go with the second one, because I'm going to put Myles Garrett as the NFL MVP.
Okay, yeah.
With his record-setting sack year. You put him on any other team, he's not only still playing, he's winning games and eating the football as he's doing it. I just what an amazing year on a bad team, and the guy's just incredible. So I'm going off the track there a little bit, but I'm picking third, so I got to think outside the box.
I like it. All right, next up, offensive player of the year. It kind of pains me to say this, but Puka Nacua, 129 catches, led the league in receptions. When you watch him play, his toughness and his physicality at the wide receiver position, I think is unmatched in the league at this point. Though I will say he had a couple of bad drops the other day in the playoff game. It didn't come back to haunt them. I found Puka Nacua as a rookie charming. I thought that guy is going to be loved by everybody. He plays with more of an edge now. He's got some real, for lack of a different word, he's got like kind of an attitude out there. I must say, if you're a Rams fan, you love him. I say as someone who isn't a Rams fan, he's increasingly hard to like, but maybe it's just because he's so darn good. Puka Nacua is my offensive player of the year, but I don't feel great about it.
I was looking at his numbers. He has like 1,700 yards.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. And he's so reliable that in that Panthers game, when he dropped the ball, it's almost like you feel like there was a glitch or something.
Right.
Like, wait, what? Like he dropped that pass. So yeah, that's a good pick. Again, for the sake of variety, I'm going to go with James Cook for my offensive player of the year.
Okay.
So led the NFL in rushing yards with more than 1,600. He averaged 95 rushing yards per game, and he was fourth in scrimmage yards among all players with just under 2,000. You know, I think it depends on how you look at these awards. I think if you took James Cook off the Bills, they are a dramatically different team. And I think what he's done for them this year and for Josh Allen is he has opened everything up for them offensively, where defenses can't just key in on Josh Allen. You have to respect what James Cook can do. He's been explosive. He's been a playmaker all season for them. Just a really, really impressive player that I think has changed their offense and really given Allen an opportunity to make a run at this thing. Because without him, I don't know if the Bills are a playoff team without James Cook this year. So he is my offensive player of the year.
I'll see your Puka Nacua, and I'll raise your Jackson Smith and Jigba. He has 10 less catches, 71 more yards, and 4 less targets, and the same amount of touchdowns.
Wow.
Okay.
If he's on this team, if you put JSN on the Chiefs team, we're still playing at that backdrop behind you with the fireworks going off.
Fair enough. I also think Seattle does suffer a little bit from they're up in the Pacific Northwest. I feel like they don't necessarily get as much attention as some of the other teams and some of the time slots they're in. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, you can make a case as a top 3 or 4 receiver in the National Football League. I don't know if the whole nation, casual football fans, realize how good he is yet. I think they will if Seattle makes a run to the Super Bowl. That's for sure. All right, next up, defensive player of the year. Look, I'm going with the easy one here. I wrote the rundown first. You guys have to go after me. But I mean, it is Myles Garrett. But, you know, a part of me wonders this question about Myles Garrett. He took all that money to stay in Cleveland. Would he give some of that money back to be playing on a team that's still playing right now? Like, in terms of legacy for him personally, the sacks record may last, you know, for a whole generation. But man, that guy never gets to play in any games that have deep meaning. So I just wonder, if you got him in a room and you had a lie detector test, would you trade the defensive player of the year in order to annually be in the playoffs? What do you guys think? Is he going to end up going out as a Hall of Famer, but will he ever play a meaningful playoff game?
Well, okay. I will never fault someone for taking a bunch of money, but he did sign an extension in Cleveland, you know? So now if he really believed in the vision and in the future, then I can't blame him for that. But I do wonder if he puts pressure on their front office and their new coaching staff to say like, hey, like I only have so many years where I can keep doing this. And if I don't see a clear vision or a clear path forward, then maybe he does start to make some noise. I'm not sure, but he did sign an extension there. So in part, he did choose to be there.
It makes me actually question whether he's gullible, because what could they have possibly told him that would lead him to believe that Cleveland was going to become a winning competitive franchise? Because there was nothing we saw this year. They are so far away on the quarterback situation. I'm just curious what they told him other than we're going to put some more zeros and some more commas. Like, I don't know what you could tell him that make you suddenly believe the Browns were going to be good.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. And I'll preface this by saying he's obviously the defensive player of the year. But again, for fun, I'm going to give it to Aiden Hutchinson this year.
Okay.
So Aiden Hutchinson had 100 total pressures. 100 pressures that led the NFL. Also had 14 and a half sacks. For him coming off that leg injury from last year, which was really scary, you never know with a player at that position who's coming off a broken leg. Like, will they ever be the same? And he was even better than he was the year prior. So says a lot about how he attacked his rehab, how seriously he took it, and how seriously he took this season. A disappointing season for the Lions overall, but he was fantastic. It wasn't his fault they didn't make the playoffs. So I'll give it to Aiden Hutchinson.
With high honorable mention to the entire Seattle defense, because I got that Piranha Hawk defense. I'm going to give co-defensive players of the year to Will Anderson Jr. and Daniel Hunt.
That's good.
Combined 27 sacks, combined 6 forced fumbles, combined 6 passes defense, combined 45 quarterback hits. There is no two better bookends. We saw that in the flesh. They just said the game is ours. We'll take it and send Aaron Rodgers into the night. They're amazing. We saw them too.
Yep.
They're impossible to block. They're incredible. No better bookends, and we haven't seen a 1-2 punch like that in a while.
Yeah, and it helps the defense a lot, a defensive coordinator, when you only have to bring 4, and you never have to bring anybody else because those 4 are so good. All right, so let's go to Coach of the Year, and I'm just going to list off some names that I think should be candidates that you could make, I think, a very compelling case for. Sean Payton, Mike Vrabel, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, DeMeco Ryans, and Ben Johnson. I think you could really make a case and you'd be like, oh, well, that guy should be the coach of the year. We can only pick one, and I'm actually going away from what you guys, the consensus I think is that Vrabel is the guy, but to me, the coach of the year is someone who can take an 0-3 team and have them still playing now. I think DeMeco Ryans is the NFL coach of the year because he doesn't have a great quarterback. That team had to do it with defense. And again, 0-3, just you guys know that the Chiefs struggled. You know what 1-2 felt like. Imagine what 0-3 feels like, right? It feels like you got no chance. And he willed this team, and they're playing as well as anybody right now. They are a hot team. And for what it's worth, DeMeco Ryans is very likable. The way he leads his team, and he smiles a lot, and he's not I don't know. There's something about the guy that I like. Look, he played for the 49ers. I can't stand the 49ers. There's reasons I shouldn't like him, but I do. I like DeMeco Ryans. He's a likable guy. So my NFL coach of the year is Houston Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans. Matt, what do you think?
Kind of like a draft board, like a team trying to figure out who's going to be taken. I was certain you were taking Vrabel, so I was super fired up about taking DeMeco Ryans. That's who I want.
I gotcha.
They won 10 straight games. Think about, they won games with Davis Mills at quarterback.
Yeah.
I think their last loss was to Denver, and they almost won that game. So yeah, what DeMeco's done this year has been incredible, and I do think he's the coach of the year. But because I'm picking second here, I will give it to Vrabel, and Vrabel deserves it too. We've talked about it already, but how he totally flipped that culture around, really, really impressive. They go from 4-13 to 14-3. I messed up the math there, but you get the idea. Total flip around. It's not easy to do. We saw it with Coach Reed here in 2013, where you have a lot of the same players, and you need to establish a new standard, right? Like what was going on before is not how we're going to do things. This is how we're going to do things now. It takes a certain kind of person to demand that standard. Vrabel's clearly that guy. Also, putting his coaches in a position to succeed and to develop a young quarterback. Drake May, I think we all agreed, was super talented and had all this potential. But, I mean, how many times do we see it? Like with Sam Darnold, for example, or other young quarterbacks. They come in the league. They just don't develop with the team that drafted them because the coaching isn't there, the culture isn't there. Vrabel has created a culture for May to not only succeed, but to thrive and to become an MVP candidate. So for what Vrabel's done this year, really, really amazing to beat the Bills in Orchard Park and to be in a position where they can make a run at an AFC title and maybe a Super Bowl after winning just 3 or 4 games last year. It's really amazing. So I'll give it to Vrabel.
This goes back to your talk about Seattle sometimes underrated. Why are we not talking about Mike McDonald enough?
Right.
Unreal what he did. Best team in the best division. And he was in the Ravens. He was with John Harbaugh for 9 years, and he's brought that to the Seahawks. They had it before with the Legion of Boom, and then they went down, and then he brought him back. So big kudos here to maybe we love Brad Veach as executive of the year, but John Schneider of De Pere, Wisconsin, by the way, the old St. Norbert fullback. he just keeps punching away. And I still see him wearing the championship belt after they won it all back in 2012 or 11, 10,
Yeah.
13. But now they're reborn, and McDonald has rebirthed those guys. I love his style. I like that team. I love their toughness. And you talk about he has made Sam Darnold a winning quarterback.
Yeah.
So Mike McDonald of the Seahawks.
I like it. All right. So that's it for the awards. Now, we're all going to give our final thought. And I just want to openly admit that my final thought is going to wildly contradict itself. So I just want to get that out there. So all the time during this year, we've talked about why the NFL is great is because of parity. It is. It's amazing. All 32 teams, it doesn't matter whether you're in Green Bay, New York, Miami, Seattle, Kansas City, everybody's got the same shot to win. And that is amazing. And I love that about the NFL. And look at all these teams we've been talking about that, weren't very good last year. And just 1 year later, all of a sudden they're in the playoffs and they're a Super Bowl contender. All that's great. But here's my contradiction. As someone who considers themselves a bit of a historian of the National Football League, maybe not on Mitch's level, but I'm happy to be in second place behind him. The dynasties are what shape the history of the game. And it's just a little bit of a bummer when I look at this year's playoffs. It may be the start of a new dynasty, but the ones that were potentially, dynasties in progress, like the Chiefs, or even had the Eagles still been in the playoffs and they had a chance to repeat. Because I grew up, it was basically Dallas or San Francisco or Green Bay in the NFC. It felt like they went to the Super Bowl every year. The other teams might occasionally have a one-off. So while parity is great, I love the talk of dynasties. I mean, last year talking about the Chiefs trying to win 3 in a row. So like that kind of storyline is missing. We're going to have a new champion. There's going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback with the exception of Stafford. There really isn't a guy in there who you think is creating like a legacy of multiple Super Bowl titles. So I know it's a contradiction. I love parity, but I also love dynasties because it's the legacy. When we talk about the greatest teams in NFL history, most recently, of course, our beloved Chiefs, that just brings an extra bit of potential history to the playoffs. So this year, it may be the start of something new. I sure hope not, because I don't want there to be a new dynasty because I want the Chiefs one to continue next season. But I'm looking forward to the rest of the playoffs, but I do miss the fact that there's no team here that's in the middle of a dynasty. And that's my final thought.
So my final thought has to do with something that all three of us are very involved in, and that is the preseason. Now,
Yes.
it might seem odd to discuss the preseason when the NFL playoffs are going on, but one thing I've been thinking about lately, and Mitch and I have talked about this a lot, is that the Chiefs the last couple of years just have not impressed us in the preseason, right?
Mm-mm.
And if you're listening, you might say, who cares? It's the preseason. The games don't matter. Well, I think if you look at Seattle, when we played them in the preseason earlier this year, I came away from that game thinking that team is really good, like a lot better than I thought they were going to be. And look at them now. I think how you play in the preseason, even with your fourth stringers, even though it doesn't matter in the end in terms of the score, how you play matters. And I think it affects how you play throughout the season. And it can almost be kind of like a little preview of what a team could be because their top to bottom talent, their intensity, how they're playing, that might shine through. And I just remember leaving that Seattle game being really impressed with the Seahawks, kind of going into it, not really sure what they were going to be, and coming away thinking, I think they might be really good. And now they're the 1 seed in the NFC, and we think they might go to the Super Bowl and win it. So I use all this to say, I hope when we're all getting together in August and watching the Chiefs in the preseason, particularly after a season like the one we just had, I hope we come away from those preseason games saying, hey, I think these are the Chiefs that we know they can be. This is the team we expected because they're playing a certain way, a certain impressive caliber of football that we're accustomed to, right? And hopefully that can be a preview for a great Chiefs season to come.
And I'll tag that with, when I first started with the Chiefs, it felt like those preseason games that winning was of paramount importance. I can remember Andy Reid talking about how important it was to win in the preseason. And that's why that last preseason game when they lost the lead against the Bears, it actually kind of stung. I thought, well, that's not the way it normally goes around here. The winning in the preseason does matter. So I echo that. I think winning all the time is a part of the culture. And I expect the Chiefs to win a bunch of preseason games next year. Now to Mitch for your final thought.
Well, let me tag both of your thoughts. First, it's going to be so much harder for a dynasty. The 17th game, and that 17th game is against the best team from the other conference from the year before. 2, the proliferation of the international games makes it much more difficult. It's hard to do. And I'm with Matt. Matt and I have talked about this a lot. You've not called, nor have I, a preseason win for 2 years, Ari.
Yeah.
It's been 0 for an 0 for. Now, they don't count, but they matter. They count when you lose them all, and it gives you an indication of the guts of your roster. My closing thought is a team can be scheduled out of a season.
Mm.
You had 2 preseason games, Ari, close to you. You're at Seattle and Arizona.
Yep.
When we got back, it was 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of camp or trying to figure out, get our roster. Now, keep in mind, we've had the shortest preseason for 3 years in a row.
3 years in a row, yeah.
The shortest preseason. We started playing 2 preseason games at Seattle and at Arizona. We started the season at Brazil. We waited on a plane for 2 hours before we left to take a 10.5-hour flight, to lose 2 hours, to go an hour and a half through customs, to drive almost 2 hours across town. That was just to get there.
When you put it that way.
Wow.
Now,
Man.
we're not done, because we also played Monday night on the road and Sunday night on the road, all before Columbus Day. All of that was packed in before Columbus Day. To me, this team, a tired team anyway, stretching the rubber band, was given little chance, because we got thrown into the fire right out of the gut. So you can schedule, when the schedule comes out, who plays whom when, who's got the international games, where are they setting? And even for us, like the preseason games, which is why I'm looking at your background and I still see Australia on there. It's right by, I see Australia right behind GEHA Field at Arrowhead. And the first game's probably going to be in Australia. Yeah. I don't want to, yes, I love Australia. I want to go there. I don't want to play the Rams in Australia in week 1. No, just me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But this was so fun. I like having the 3 of us back together.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for Out West. Guys, this is going to be a fun weekend. I love divisional round, and I look forward to talking more playoffs with you guys next week, and I appreciate both of you so much.
All right, thanks to Ari and all year long of giving us his expertise and covering the league. Now we pivot. Now we turn to 26, and basically this is going to happen in sequence. But the first thing we need to do is give kudos to Chiefs General Manager Brett Veach and his entire staff. Here's why. You just heard Matt and I in the first part of this podcast breaking down. We had time to do some analysis we've never been able to do in 10 years. I'm going through 10-play defensive efficiency, scoring efficiency. Brett Veach has had to do both. Otherwise, you and I for 10 years have been getting ready for, it'd be the Houston game, or we're getting ready for the Denver game here in the playoffs, or we got to go to New England. No, we're sitting here doing deep dives. What fans need to know is that for 10 years plus, Brett Veach and his crew, and since Brett took over as GM and John Dorsey before that, they have to have done both. They've had to do both of this for 10 years. Like, they have to do all the deep dive and look at where do we fix and where's our board, and in the meantime still have a season going on where it's intense and trying to get to the Super Bowl. It blows me away how much Brett Veach and his crew has to be on point all the time, especially what they've done over the past decade.
I liked after 22 and 23 when he would text you the picture of their draft room. They're like them watching prospects the day after the parade.
Yeah, we're all in kind of a post-parade stupor, you know, and they're like in there at 7 o'clock.
Grinding linebacker tape.
And I'm going, God, these guys,
you know,
what kind of life do they have?
Well, the commitment is incredible. And that's why Brett and the front office deserve the benefit of the doubt here. That
Good point.
What's so remarkable about this past season, the reason it kind of stings so much is we're not used to it. This team, since 2013, had a winning season every single year. Went to the playoffs every single year, with the exception of 2014. Won the division every single year since 2016. Then this year happens, and it's like, whoa. Like, what happened? We're not used to this. We're not used to it because Brett Veach in this front office and Coach Reed and the coaching staff every single year with no time to really do it and prepare, when other teams have all the time in the world to prepare, finding ways to turn things over and put out a championship-level team. If you look at some of the teams that are in the playoffs this year, a lot of them missed last year. Yeah. Like, think about New England, right? New England goes 3-14 last year. They had plenty of time to turn things over and to pivot before this season. That's normally the case. That's how the NFL is designed, is you're supposed to have teams every single year that have a shot, and teams that weren't very good the year prior, they have a shot the next year. It's designed that way. They have more time, more money, a higher draft pick, all that stuff. The Chiefs, year after year, found a way to sustain success despite many disadvantages, right? And one thing I'm excited about, again, this year is for the first time in forever, we actually have that advantage. And we have the people in charge that for years won, despite not having it. Now they have it. The question is, how do they use it? And that's something I'm fired up about this offseason.
Yeah, this is your neighbor Jeff running a marathon and fixing your HVAC all at the same time. That's what Brett Veach has had to do, and his staff. So they're involved in the next sequence of events that I'm going to give you between now and, let's say, the start of free agency, which is the official start of the year. Well, these other teams are slugging it out in the playoffs where we normally are. We're now looking at first of all, is staff. You look at staff, and we've seen these head coaching positions come open, some very surprising. Yeah. Ravens and Steelers come to mind. You're talking
shocking.
A combined almost 40 years of head coach, two head coaches in that spot. Those jobs are both now open.
2 Super Bowl championships.
It's a lot. That's cataclysmic. It reminds me of Coach Reed when he got let go by the Eagles in 2012, December 31. It's that with Tomlin and Harbaugh being in the market. It's a game changer out there. All right, but the Chiefs look at their own staff, and Coach Reed looks at the staff and evaluates everybody on the staff. Some you lose. We've been fortunate to keep this staff together for a long time for the most part, but you always lose guys, and some you're looking at maybe ways of improving. And we're going to see a lot of this happen, I think, over the next several days. But that's the first stage, is the inward look of who's getting invited to interview, and then who maybe do you make room for or make a position group switch and look at your own staff and go, we've got to get better in certain areas.
Yeah, and I don't think it's only limited to changes. I think it's also an opportunity for self-reflection, right? I think one of the best attributes of a champion, of someone who's really good at what they do, is they're able to reflect and say, hey, this worked really well, or hey, I can do this better, right? I think anyone does that in any profession, and I think this is a great opportunity for there to be a lot of self-reflection on, hey, these things didn't work out so well, or we did these things well, how do we build on that? And, you know, part of fixing some of the issues we ran into this year isn't all about just adding new players. It's of developing the guys that we currently have. And we have a lot of really exciting young players who showed us some things, I think, over the last couple weeks, and that we know have great potential. And it's a matter of developing them. So whether it be changes on the coaching staff or just new methods, new ideas on how to get the most out of the players that we have, this is an opportunity to think through those things. And, you know, there's some young players on this team that I'm really excited about. Guys like Josh Simmons, Brashard Smith, Esapole comes out of nowhere. Defensively, Noel Williams, really impressive to close out the year. Ashton Gelati showed us some stuff over the course of the season. At wide receiver, guys like Xavier Worthy, all the potential and talent in the world. A lot of opportunities to have those players maybe take their game to the next level. And I think from a coaching point of view, it's not always just new messages. It could just be reflecting this offseason on, hey, maybe we try this or we try that. There's a chance for that. So it's not always about just adding new faces and new players. It's also about making sure we're getting the most out of the guys we have. That's
an excellent point, and that's a point that I think gets overlooked because it's less sexy. Because the next stage after you get your staff set, or you know who's gone and who you've hired, and this again happens now. It's going to happen in the next several days, and some of that's predicated on teams in the playoffs and when they exit the playoffs and so forth. But another phase is whom do you keep in your current roster that would be free agents that you want to re-sign. That's the first box you check, and then next is what free agents do you target. But a dotted line parallel box is what you've alluded to. That must happen. And has happened in this franchise, especially like the class of 22, is you coach them up. You make them better. And right now, who the crosshairs are on are the classes of 25, 24, and 23 that are still under contract. Jaden Hicks, Jared Wiley, going down the line here with different players, Kingsley Suama'atia, Felix Enudike Uzama.
And Kingsley's a good example of this because Kingsley goes from being a tackle who struggled to whole new position at guard. I think we both agree Kingsley had a pretty good season at guard, and we're excited about him moving forward.
In fact, those 4 guys, if you go right down, we don't know about right tackle, but you go down Trey, Creed, Kingsley, and Simmons, that's going to be a really good.
It's really good.
Okay, but you catch my point. The classes of 23, 24, and 25 that are under contract now that you keep, you've got to coach them up and make them better. Jaden Hicks, to me, is like one of the exhibit A's of this. But we can look at other players throughout the roster that fit this category. So your point is very well taken. The second point is then who do you keep of your impending free agents? This is the class of 2022, who are now up. You can only extend the first-round picks. Everybody else, you got to decide who stays, who goes. That's the decision box. And then you target free agents to go get. But we also have seen, everybody sees the list of potential free agents and just goes nuts. Let's have this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Most of them, every team in the league goes through this sequence that we're giving you. Most of them re-sign with their team.
Yeah.
And so don't get tricked into thinking, wow, this is such a great group of free agents, because within less than 48 hours or even before free agency begins, they're extended.
Yeah, it's tricky. If you go to like overthecap.com or SpotTrack and you're looking at like potential free agents, I mean, there's so much time between now and when free agency opens in early March that guys are going to get franchise tagged, they're going to get re-signed, whatever. It's going to change. Still going to be opportunities for the Chiefs to add some players, though. To your point, we currently have 23 pending unrestricted free agents. So it's a lot of players, and it's a lot of recognizable players, particularly from that class of 2022. You evaluate which guys from that group you want to bring back, and you also look at the landscape of the guys that do make it to free agency from other teams, and which ones are you interested in bringing in here. One thing the Chiefs have been so good about over the years under Brett Veach is not always having to have the big splash, but finding big names that make big contributions like a couple weeks later. So I don't know what Brett Veach will do. Maybe they'll make a few big splash moves, but also like finding guys like Drew Tranquill in the offseason of 2023, like 2 weeks after free agency opened, like on a Friday at 4:00, and that player ends up being like critical to a Super Bowl run. Finding guys like that too. So free agency is going to be exciting this year because, again, I think there is a mandate right now that last year was not acceptable, right? Yeah. And that's not just coming from us. Everyone knows that in this building. Brett Veach knows that. So this is an exciting offseason in that regard to go into free agency. And what you want to do before the draft is you want to set yourself up where you can take the best players available. You don't want to, and they did that with offensive tackle last year, for example. Like, you look at the draft last year, like, hey, if Josh Simmons falls to us, that'd be incredible. That'd be amazing. But you can't bank on it. You don't want to go into the draft saying, I really hope Josh Simmons falls to us. So you go out there and you sign Jalen Moore, a player that you believe in. And what do you know? Josh Simmons falls to you and you can get even better at that position. But I fully anticipate the Chiefs will do a similar thing this offseason where you look at the areas you want to improve, and you improve via free agency, and then you go into the draft with an opportunity to take the best players available. And if that means that you keep supplementing those areas that you began free agency trying to address, great. But also maybe it means you end up with some players at positions that you didn't think were a need, but you get a really good football player at that spot and great value. So it begins with free agency, and the draft follows it.
Yeah, and another part of this phase, and I don't know what the German version of SpotTrack is, Deutsche over the cap.
Yeah.
I'll think of over the cap in German and have it for the next episode. But if you look at those sites, you're going, oh my God, we're $58 million over the cap, like it's the apocalypse.
Don't worry about it.
We're all going to die. It'll be figured out. Okay,
don't worry about it.
There's already a plan for it.
Yeah.
But in this phase of what players do we have in free agency that we would like to kind of have come back, or who we can afford, is also the era of extensions or restructuring. And we've seen that and seen it in every team around the league, most notably the ones with the bigger contracts. You can restructure, you can extend, and we can do our own version of tagging, right? Whether it's franchise tag or transitional tag. But the point is, you make those decisions now. You're in negotiation with your current players of, okay, we got to free up some space here. We can free up $20 million by doing this restructuring. And that's part of this phase 2 that is happening right now, which again makes it all the more impressive of what Brett Veach has done, because I'm thinking he did all this stuff we're talking about, and you and I aren't thinking about all this stuff when we're talking about if we're playing football.
And this is also why Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate team player.
He's awesome.
And why his contract is so beneficial to the Chiefs. Not in terms of like the money, it's in terms of the length. The fact that Mahomes signed such a long contract, it allows Brett in the front office to have a runway to know, hey, if we want to convert some of his money into a signing bonus and spread it out, we can do it over the course of several years. We know how much he's on the books for in 2027. You know, like, it's so beneficial. You look at a lot of these contracts for quarterbacks around the NFL, max they're 6 years. Right? And that's a long contract. Normally they're like 3 years because the player is just trying to maximize their value every single year. And you know, I don't blame the player for that, but that is a player trying to maximize their financial gains. Patrick Mahomes, when he signed that deal, was thinking about, hey, I want to win here as much as possible. I want the Chiefs to win as much as possible. And I think we're going to see it this offseason. We're having the benefit of a long contract like that with your best player, your franchise player, your quarterback, a future Hall of Famer, and not having to worry about that aspect where his contract is actually a benefit. You can use that to help us right now, as opposed to like, oh man, and we got to figure out a way to sign him again and all that. It's just a big benefit. So Patrick Mahomes is the best for a million reasons, but that's certainly one of them.
In 32 years, I don't think I've ever seen a player, because you hear about quarterbacks many times being the extension of their coach and the way they think, and he's certainly that. I mean, he's so analytical in the way he prepares. I don't think in 32 years I have seen a player that thinks like his general manager.
Yeah.
He is a general manager. And would it stun any of us someday, and I don't know if Brittany would allow him to do it or not because of the hours involved, that would it stun you that Patrick Mahomes would be a general manager someday?
No, he'd be really good at it.
He'd be awesome at it.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff we're talking about, he's like, yeah, I could do all that.
100%.
And I'm not sure if we had all the 32 quarterbacks lined up, how many would be that way?
No, I agree. Again, because most quarterbacks, I think, are interested at the end of the day in just maximizing their own personal value. Yeah. And nothing wrong with that. That's human nature. But Mahomes has found a way to make a lot of money and have a good living while also trying to ensure this organization has success. And this offseason, when we're in a position where we're probably going to have some turnover at some positions and make some changes, having that guy with the foresight to give us a contract like this that we can work with, it's a big benefit. So, again, he's the best for a million reasons, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, Chris Jones is another one who could restructure here too. That's a contract that could, you work on getting some cap room. Anyway, that's where we're at, and it is a big pivot. Now, we'll talk about the draft ad nauseum.
Yes.
But it's really getting ready to get to the combine or get to the start of the NFL year, which happens in March, early March. But the point is, you've got to get ready, and that's where the Chiefs are right now, and it's the big pivot. And that's where we're at. We're pivoting along with the rest of you.